First and foremost, vacancy and collection allowance, okay? Any conservative investor that's analyzing a property, underwriting a deal, is going to work with about a 10% vacancy and collection allowance on a property, okay? 10% of this specific deal, right, is $2,000. It's going to be $200 per month that we're covering on vacancy and collection. Let me give you a very simple example of this. Let's say somebody stays in your rental property for the full year, right? They lease the property. You don't even have any problem collecting from them. They stay in the lease. They love the house. Wonderful house. They fulfill their entire 12-month lease, but now it's time for them to move on, right? They got a new job. Maybe they had a kid in that year. They just want something bigger. They want something different. They want something in a different area. Whatever the case may be, they were the best tenant ever. Didn't even cause any problems, but now they're going to move out. When they move out, how often is it that the day they move out, you move a tenant in the very next day? Never, right here, I got a thumbs down right there. It's going to take, there are always going to be some cleanup, couple repairs, patch some holes in the walls, get it marketed, get some people through there. It's not always easy to show it. I mean, if you get really, really lucky, you may be able to move somebody in a week or two, but most people are working on the 1st, and so if you have somebody move out on the 30th, you're not going to move them in the next day, and so you get in, you clean it up, you do this, you do that, you put it on the market. The next person's going to move in on the next 1st, right, when their other rental is up. And so almost every time you have at least 1 month of vacancy. On this property, how much does 1 month of vacancy cost you? $2,000. Divide that by 12 months, and that's about $200 a month, okay? Is that real money? Is that real money you lost? Was your mortgage payment still due the month that you didn't have anybody in there? Yes. So that is a real expense to you having this rental property. Now, maybe you get lucky, and this would certainly be a lesson as to why it would be smart to incentivize your tenants to not leave after a year, because it's going to cost you $2,000 if they don't stay another year. So if you can just get them to renew their lease, it may be worthwhile to throw some bonuses and some benefits and some things at them to do that, right? But let's say they love the house, they stay for 3 or 4 years. Let's say just once every 4 or 5 years, you have a tenant that you have to evict. Where's Robert Biggerstaff? Where you at? You had a couple of these stories, right? Had a couple of, he went for a while with no issues, but I think he had a couple evictions just recently, right? You could go 4 or 5 years with no problems. But what are the chances that every 4 or 5 years or so, you're going to have to evict somebody? Evicting somebody doesn't just take a couple of weeks, right? There's a process. And can they do some damage on the way out? And will you have to maybe even do more repairs? Could that take your property off for 2 months or maybe 3? Absolutely. 2 or 3 months here, every 5 years would still average out to a couple of $100 a month. Vacancy and collection is a real issue for landlords. Put it in your numbers. Because if you don't, it is going to jump up and bite you, and it is a real expense to having a rental.